Welcome to Mirage. My name is Brian Aiello, and today we're going to be speculating on C.S. Lewis. Joining me is the great Rachael Hardcastle.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Very good. I think we just discussed how we're completely out of it today and want to take naps. Actually, I'd love to go back to sleep.
Yeah, I'm in the mood for a nap, but
Well, you're about ready to go to
this.
sleep, period, aren't you? Isn't it late in England?
It's only 6 o'clock in England.
That's late.
But
I'd go to sleep.
But yeah, I could use a nap. It's been a long day.
So you are a fan of C.S. Lewis, or what is your experience with this author?
Ages ago, I tried to read one of his books. I think it was more science fiction than anything, and for the life of me, I cannot remember what the title was, but I kind of enjoyed it and never really thought to pick up any of his other books because I have that much else to read. And then for Christmas, a friend of mine bought me tickets to go and see The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe at a theatre near us, and they were selling the hardback sort of special editions, the pocket ones, as merchandise, and I bought one and read it in 2 days and absolutely loved it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing.
That's my experience with C.S. Lewis, are the Narnia Chronicles. I didn't even know he wrote anything else until much later on in my life. I learned he was a science fiction author and a Christian apologist, and I couldn't care less. I mean, those 6 books, is it 6 or 7? I think it's 7 books, are my childhood, basically. I just read them over and over and over again.
I don't know, but they all have lovely covers. I'm on his website at the moment, and there's lots of different covers. Surprised by Joy, The Four Loves, Miracles, Mere Christianity. There's loads of different ones, and they all look lovely. But the edition that I've got, the hardcover for The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, is actually on the website in the books listing. So it's like blue with a lion face on the front. It's lovely, and it's a really, really good book.
So how many books has he written? That's 10, 15. He has written 18 books, according to his website. That's not a bad life.
7, 8. I'm just counting them. 12.
12.
I make it about 24, but on here there could be.
Oh, okay.
Here there could be like collections and stuff, you know.
Actually, I'm not even seeing the Chronicles of Narnia on this little list that I'm looking at right now. It says, discover the complete library of C.S. Lewis, and that's a lie.
Well, there's also an official Narnia cookbook, if anybody wants to have a go at that. Yeah. Apparently, you can cook like Narnians.
The second book, there is a scene where I think the 4 of them have returned to Narnia, and they kill a bear, and they, take steaks off the bear, and they wrap the steaks around apples, and they grill the apple wrapped steaks over a open fire. For my entire life, I've wanted to eat that meal. It doesn't. I mean, they say that it's the first time I've experienced where bear who eat meat are not very good, and bear who eat berries are delicious. So, I mean, I guess food plays a gigantic part in these books.
I think you need the cookbook in that case then, Brian.
Maybe. What else is in there? Can you check it out? Are you able to look at like a preview of it?
Let's have a look. I will see. It's prize-winning recipes, so there must be something.
Oh.
Yes, $3.99.
Where are you looking? I'm looking at C.S. Lewis' website, and I see nothing like that.
If you go on the books tab and then scroll down, it's got like an apple on a stone, and then it says the official Narnia cookbook.
I have nothing like that. Maybe there's an English version and an American version, and the American version sucks.
Well, it's got White Witch's Turkish Delight, Centaur's Oat Cakes, Dryad's Favourite Gooseberry, something or other.
Did he write this book, or did this happen after he was, already passed?
It says Food from the Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis on the front, and it just says by no author. It doesn't like on the listing, but it is on his website, so I'm assuming it's something to do with his publisher.
Well, he's got 2 stepsons that are still alive, and I would imagine they're the ones that are actually doing this website.
It's the book itself's under fantasy and cooking and food for teenagers. It's a HarperCollins children's book. but it doesn't actually give an author. It just says by no author, and there's no author on the cover, so I'm just assuming it's just linked to the book, like just the publisher that's released it.
Oh, you're not on Amazon though, are you?
No, I'm not, just on his website. But there
Yeah,
is a Narnia.com apparently, so maybe it's on there.
maybe. I'm gonna look up. So it's the Food of Narnia? No, it's Narnia
The
Cookbook.
official Narnia cookbook, it's called.
The official Narnia Cookbook. See, now you know that I type like one word a minute. It's by the unofficial Narnia Cookbook, the Narnia
It's got an apple on the
Cookbook,
front cover.
foods from, what is it?
It's got like it's like a grey colour with a stone, and then there's an apple on the stone, and that's on the front cover.
Oh, okay, I see it. And it says that it's actually written by his son and Pauline Danes, Douglas Gershom. Gershom. How do you want to be the person who is father to these two boys? His name was William Lindsay Grisham, and he wrote noir, and he lost his wife, Joy Davidman, to C.S.Lewiss. He died in 1954. No, he didn't. He died in 1962.
So when you say he lost his wife,
well, she dumped him and married C.S.Lewis.
Oh, right. Oh, charming.
And like 9 years later, C.S.Lewis died, and 8 years later, Grisham died. So she's
I
like,
he was going to say 8 years
good.
later she got back with Grisham.
No, I mean, unless you like skeletons, I don't think that happened, probably, because he was already dead by that point. Yeah, and she's an author too and a poet, and she died in 1960. Oh crap! So I guess she was already dead by the time both of them died. They both died probably of brokenheartedness.
There's a big timeline on his website that talks you through like when his mum died and his father died.
I don't know which one is
where
website.
they died.
His
dad died on September 24th, 1929 in Belfast, and his mum died.
Are you on CSLewis.com?
Yes.
Okay, because that for some reason
is that wrong?
No, I don't know. There's like two websites.
I'm thinking, am I on the wrong website?
There are two. I have two websites. CSLewis.drseuss.net is another one that says it's an official website as well. But I'll just go back to the real official one. There's a timeline. Why does my website look totally different than yours?
If you go CSLewis.com on the homepage, and it's a lion and him in like a robe at the top. Yeah. Go to the tab that says about C.S. Lewis and wait for it to load, and then just scroll down.
I'm looking at English words. I thought I was reading in Russian.
Scroll down and it's there.
Yes. So he
Dates
died.
For all his books published.
Interesting. Oh, this is where you're counting the books.
No, I was counting the books from the books tab.
When did J.R.R. Tolkien die? They were like buddies. J.R.R. Tolkien actually got him back into Christianity, or got him into Christianity. I think C.S. Lewis at one point was a atheist.
He met friend and colleague Tolkien on 11th of May 1926. But
that's interesting. Did they 26? Second World War, First World War in Oxford University. 1972.
He was discharged from the army a couple of years later. No,
he was in the officer training corps at the university. Most promising route into the army. He was drafted into the cadet battalion for training. After his training, he was commissioned in the 3rd Battalion of the British Army as a second lieutenant. On his 19th birthday, he arrived at the front line in the Somme Valley in France and experienced the wonderful trench warfare. What a horrible existence. Him and both J.R.R. Tolkien were in that exact same battle, experiencing bombs and mud and mustard gas and all types of horrible things. And how did he fare in this? He was assigned duty in Andover. Lewis was wounded and 2 of his colleagues were killed by a British shell falling short of its target. He suffered from depression and homesickness, and during his convalescence, upon his recovery in October, he was assigned to duty in Andover. So my grandfather was born in 1918. Doesn't matter, but that's when he was demobilized. It's interesting. He also has World War II history. After the outbreak of the Second World War in 1939, the Lewises took child evacuees from London and other cities into the kilns. Do you know the kilns?
No.
Oh, the kilns. It's also known as C.S.
No, I
Lewis's
don't.
house. Does everybody name their houses in England? Did you name your house?
I have not named my house, but my parents have a house that has a name.
Do you want to share it? Probably not, huh?
No, but thanks.
Is it called the house?
Yeah, it's called House. Yeah, they named it House.
Housey?
No, yeah, they
Housey
have,
von
but
Housey?
it's yeah. But their house is kind of coastal, so I think like holiday houses usually have names, whereas I wouldn't just name my residence unless it already had a name when I moved in, or it was like a cottage or something. But I don't live in a cottage, so.
Well, he lived on the outskirts of Heatington Quarry. Are you familiar with that place?
No.
Are you really from England?
Yes.
Isn't your-
You wouldn't think so, because I know absolutely bugger all, but I
is
am, yeah.
Oxfordshire, do you know where that is?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know any of these words. They're just very strange to me, but it looks like it's near London in a way. And there's a graveyard, and the Kilns
But
is a
in
very nice looking house. I watched when I was a kid, I discovered C.S. Lewis through the Wardrobe, the BBC production.
oh yeah.
Oh my God, I loved it so much. And I guess the BBC did the whole thing, the whole series. But that particular show really set it off for me. And I could not put down those books as a child. I just loved them so much. But thinking back on where the kids, you read The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, right?
Yes, but that's the only one I've ever read, and this is a big thing to admit, but I actually had no idea about The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe before that. I knew it existed and roughly the story, but I'd never read a book, I'd never watched the movies, never seen a play or anything, and my friend was like, right, we're going to see it.
How was the play? Tell me about the play experience.
It was, well, at the beginning it was worrying because I was ill on the day when we went, so my poor friend had to put up with me coughing and spluttering throughout the whole thing. But when we actually got there, this guy came over to us with these green, like laminated pieces of paper and said, oh, can I give you some of these, ladies? And we were like, if it involves getting on stage, if it involves being anything to do with this other than watching and enjoying it, then go away. So I was like, no, everybody gets one. Don't worry.
Wait,
Don't
are you the rudest person in England? I thought you guys were supposed to be nice and stuff.
We were like, we do not want to be on stage. We just want to sit and enjoy it. Don't give us anything that's going to make us a target from the actors, basically. So it was like, oh no, everybody's been saying that. Don't worry about it. Everybody gets one of these. I'm just checking to see if you've got one. So we're like, no, but we'll have one. So it turns out that they're like little evacuation tickets, like green. And the whole audience were all the children that were being evacuated at the beginning of the story. So you had to wave them. And then later on, you turned them over and they were supposed to be leaves so that when the snow melts later in the story, you wave them and it's like that spring's arrived anyway. So
interesting.
So we got there.
This was and that's more of a children's play. This was obviously it's a children's book, so it's a children's play.
There were loads and loads of kids there, but there was actually it was just, I don't know, it was funny for adults as well. It wasn't childish, it was just entertaining.
Yeah.
And the actors and actresses that were in it were really good, clearly really devoted. And the best thing that me and my friend loved, who is actually an author that I've interviewed on The White Room, J.A. Myers. So that's who I went with. And she said that they did like, is Aslan the lion? They did puppets and stuff. Yeah. So we were wondering what that was going to be all about. And it was basically, they built this giant puppet that was on like big sticks, and they'd decorated it with fell and fabrics, and it looked like a humongous lion. And then when Aslan came out, it was a guy dressed in furs, and there was about 6 or 7 of the other cast members behind him, all making the lion move above him. So when he breathed in, the lion breathed in. So it was perfectly timed. It was really amazing the way they'd done it. And obviously then when he roared, the lion roared. It was just really cool. So I think the best thing about it was just the costumes and stuff were just like the White Witch was all her face was painted silver and she had this big headdress on. It was just awesome.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. Has this thing been around a while, or is it just new to town? I mean, that's awesome. That was been. Was it timed with this show? Do you think they put it on for me and
Maybe.
Mirage?
Maybe. I don't know how long it's been around. I think it was at the Yorkshire Playhouse, which is in Leeds. So it's quite close to where I live. But I don't know. I don't know whether it's one group that taught or whether it's several groups that do different versions of it. I would imagine lots of different sort of play groups have done different versions of it. But this, I think we managed to go and see it maybe in the last week of it playing. Because another friend of mine said that she was looking forward to seeing it, and it was the week after that I think she was hoping to go.
Well, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was published in 1950, and it's gone through a bunch of incarnations. It was on a TV serial in 1967. It was a film in 1979 through Bill Melendez Productions of the Children's Television Workshop. I don't know if that's something you're familiar with. In 1988, it was a TV serial, a 6-episode miniseries on the BBC, The Chronicles of Narnia. And then the play was 1989, and it was a dramatization of the novel by a French person, Chalanche Durand, right? Is that how you say his name? Chalanche?
Yeah, I love how you're asking me. I'm from Yorkshire. I butcher everything.
There's an accent above the E, so that's got to mean that it's special. So I'm going to go with Solange, since it's probably the ruder version of the pronunciation.
I love it. That's got to mean that it's special.
Solange. Oh no. What a crazy name.
Solange.
Solange Durand.
Solange? I don't know.
I don't know. I took Spanish.
Anybody
in
that's
high
French
school.
listening, can you tell us, please?
Right. If I took German in college, I took French in high school. So not French. I took Spanish in high school. I'm afraid of French, honestly. I do not like French.
I'm just naff at it, to be honest. I did take it I took it in GCSE. I took German for GCSE, and I've forgotten most of it, to be honest. But I'm just naff at accents.
My opinion is you have to immerse yourself in the culture to actually learn the language, because you have no excuse but. And this person is a woman. She's a triple talent. She's an actress, a playwright, and a drama therapist. Do we want to know what a drama therapist is? Wow, we're just going down into the woods here.
I'm not actually sure I want to know what that is.
A drama therapist is active and experimental. No, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Drama therapy is active and experimental. This approach can provide the context for participants to tell their story, set goals, and solve problems, express feelings, or achieve catharsis.
So is it like if you feel depressed, you act out depression? Is that
with her, though, directing you. No, you must act differently. That's my French accent. She's enjoyed a 30-year acting career. I wonder what else she's written. She's written The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, The Red Rose, and Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, Winnie the Pooh. Okay.
What's The Red Rose? Oh my God. So it's a relevant treatment of Beauty and the Beast. So she's actually never really written anything original. What she does is take something that's already been written by a great author and then change it to a stage play. Stage play. Not even a screenplay, just a stage play. Okay, stand there, read the words that the author's already written. No, anyway, I mean, that would be an interesting experience. I've never seen the play version.
Well, but I actually figured out the science fiction book that I read.
Which is what?
Which is Out of the Silent Planet.
Interesting. I have lost his website again.
It's a guy that gets sort of kidnapped and thrown into a spaceship and taken. Come on. I need to go to bed, honestly. What is wrong with me?
I'm going to comment again.
God, cut that out.
About the originality of our language. Didn't it come from where you are?
Oh my God. Oh, that is embarrassing. Right. Taken to a completely different planet. And then he encounters all these strange beings and stuff. So it was pretty cool. But I never read. It's a trilogy, and didn't read the whole trilogy. I just read the first book.
It's a trilogy. What's it called?
It took too long to read, apparently.
It took too long. Yeah. I can't even talk, so it's okay. Man, he's written a lot of Christian stuff. He's a Christian apologist. You know what that is?
No.
I wonder if Google knows.
I thought you were going to like educate me then for a minute. Like,
Is
I
a
don't know
field of
either.
Christian theology which presents reasoned bases for Christian faith, defending the faith against objections.
Oh, okay.
So that's interesting. Paul the Apostle is a Christian apologist. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say what his religious views are because, again, all I know him by is the Chronicles of Narnia. And if you've seen The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, you understand that Aslan is like a thin veiled version of some kind of deity figure, like a god or maybe even like a Jesus. I'm not even sure whether we can find. What do you think?
I don't know. I didn't really try to analyze it, to be honest. I figured that he was representative of some kind of higher being, but other than that, I didn't really look into it. I just tried to enjoy it for what it is. But I think it's probably because it was my first Narnia experience. It was my first major. I knew roughly of the story because how can you not, really? But I'd not sat and read one of the books. I'd not watched a movie, much to J.A. Myers' horror. And she had to kind of educate me into C.S.Lewiss. And I don't know, I didn't I didn't watch the play thinking I wonder what that represents. I just enjoyed it. But now that you say it, I guess it could be some kind of divine being.
Yeah, I mean,
As
they
I'm
do.
learning.
It is considered a deity, and though it's an original character, there are parallels that exist with the Christ figure. So his
Okay.
sacrifice and subsequent resurrection parallels that story from the Bible, the Christ crucifixion and resurrection.
Yeah, because Aslan comes back to life, doesn't he?
It's so interesting that you never saw the movies. They were horrible. I
No,
think they were horrible.
I saw a little bit of the Prince Caspian movie, but I think it was ages ago when I was on a plane, and it just so happened to be the movie that was on the plane. I think I caught some of it, but other than that, no, it's not. They're not really movies that I've ever. Given that I write fantasy, you'd think that they'd attract me, but I've never felt that pull to watch them. Now that I've read the book and seen the play, I'm interested to see the movie version just to see like the comparison.
Are
But
you a Doctor
no,
Who
it's
fan?
no,
No, you don't
no,
like
no,
Doctor
no.
Who?
I
In
like the
2011, there was
Dalek
a
episodes. I like the Dalek episodes, and I like some of the old movies with I can't remember what they call him.
Tom Baker.
Uh, no, what do they call him? The old guy that plays Doctor Who.
I don't know. I know
There's,
two. I know the new guys, and then I know Tom Baker, and Tom Baker is my favorite.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to look it up now because it's gonna bug me. I'm gonna wake
Well,
up
there was
having
an episode
nightmares.
of Doctor Who, a Christmas special in 2011, inspired by Chronicles of Narnia. It's very interesting. It's like there's been tons of adaptations of these. There's a video game, there's movies, there's plays, there's TV things. It's like the most, I don't know, this one book has been done so many different ways. And it's not
It's
like he had anything to say about it. I mean, he was already passed away by the time they made the first 10-part serial thing on TV. His wife was too, so
it's
it's all his kids, right? His kids are pushing this out into the world over and over and over again.
looking it up on Google. It's Peter Cushing as Doctor Who.
Oh, Peter Cushing is the original.
Oh, is he? Well,
I think
that one,
so.
he's in a movie with Daleks in that one, and he's also in another one where they're in London. There's one where they go to some other planet where the forest's kind of withered, and then there's one in London, and both those movies are two of my favourites. But other than that, I don't really do Doctor Who other than those two movies, and that's only because my dad kind of watched them with me when I was a little bit younger, and it's kind of just something that I've enjoyed. But no, I'm not
Traditional.
really a Doctor Who fan.
That's
Yeah,
really honestly the only reason I like Tom Baker is I saw an episode with my father as like an 8-year-old or a 7-year-old, and it just stuck with me. I don't even
and
know if I
Daleks are
actually
kind of
like Tom
scary for
Baker.
kids. I think
Daleks,
Daleks
yeah.
are pretty scary, so I don't know why I enjoyed them as a kid, but I'm clearly weird like that.
So the science fiction story that you read that turned out to be a trilogy, Do you remember being interested in knowing what happened with those characters going forward, or was there an open-ended story that kind of I mean, obviously you didn't read the next two books, but
I don't remember how it ends, but to be honest, a lot of books I read, unless it's something that really stays with me, I generally, if I don't reread the book within about a year, I generally forget what sort of the details are. I know the general story, but even with the Hunger Games, I couldn't probably tell you how the Hunger Games books end, other than the big sort of surprise twist that happens. Because they don't, just stories don't stay with me unless there's something significant in them. So I don't really remember how it ended, but I do remember some of the strange characters and the way that he gets taken at the beginning. And so there's things that clearly were significant enough for me to remember, but I wouldn't be able to tell you the whole story off the top of my head.
well, it's the first novel in C.S. Lewis's classic science fiction trilogy, and it tells the adventure of Dr. Ransom, a Cambridge academic who's
That's the one.
abducted and taken on a spaceship to the red planet of Malacandria. I wonder why it's not the red planet of Mars. You know, I mean, the red planet. Just go to Mars.
Just go to Martha.
No, which he knows is Mars. So I should have finished reading that sentence. His captors are plotting to plunder the planet's treasure and plan to offer ransom as a sacrifice to the creatures who live there. Ransom discovers has come from the silent planet Earth, whose tragic story is known throughout the universe. Tragic story.
Yeah, I think he gets away when they land. He runs away, and these are the beings that take him in, and he tries to learn to communicate with them. So I think that's kind of what I remember. And I think off the top of my head, I imagined them as like funny shaped blob characters, but I don't know honestly what they were like. I just that's what stuck with me. So I could completely be pulling that out of thin air, remembering it wrong, but yeah, and he manages to escape, but I wouldn't be able to tell you how it ended.
It's very interesting. This is supposedly a trilogy, and it does say Space Trilogy Book 1, but if you want to know what the other two books are, you're going to have to dig because it doesn't tell you. Even on HarperCollins' website, I mean, there's like, okay, it's got two more books, guys. Goodbye.
Maybe I don't remember how it ended because it probably doesn't end significantly. It probably carries straight on to another two books. That might be why I'm not really remembering what happens at the end. I mean, but that was my first experience.
When was it first published? I mean, this is very interesting to me that they did such a horrible job marketing this thing. But they don't even tell you where the other books are or what the other books are. Out of the Silent Planet.
I think I read it as an ebook. I certainly don't have the paperback, so I think it was an ebook that I read.
Oh, it's been through a bunch of publishers too.
Yeah.
It's 1938. Wow. So it's a long time ago that he wrote this.
Yeah.
And I don't think in 1938 anybody was really writing trilogies. Man, him and J.R. Tolkien are like intertwined in their relationships. He wrote this after a conversation with him. And they were lamenting the state of contemporary
Does it say what the conversation was?
Yeah, they were lamenting the state of contemporary fiction.
Oh, okay. Just as you do.
Which is interesting because he married the woman who was married to he married a woman who was first husband was a noir writer, and noir at this time was very, very popular, you know, like detective thrillers and stuff like that. And so they were basically talking about his future wife's horrible first husband. I gather. But even the Wikipedia page, okay, the Space Trilogy, let's click on that. Out of the Silent Planet as the Space Trilogy. Oh, the Dark Tower is a part of this. Out of the
what? Say that again.
No, I'm sorry. I was wrong. But the Dark Tower is a book that he wrote. Out of the Silent Planet, Paralandria, and the Hideous Strength are the three books that are in this series.
Oh, okay. Well, I think it was definitely the first one that I read.
And 1943. I don't know. The Hideous Strength, 1945. So it took him 11 years to write this trilogy. Can you imagine in today's age taking 11 years to write your trilogy? I think nowadays, if you're not publishing like 300,000 words a year in trilogy mode, you're never going to be successful. It seems like, anyway.
Yeah.
11 years.
It's interesting because I've gone on the social page of the C.S.Lewiss website and scrolled down, and there are scenes from the movie and like little social, almost like little bookmarks that you can share. And I do recognize some of the characters in it. So I must have seen bits of the movies and just never seen them all the way through, because I do recognize the characters and the actors and actresses that are playing them. So I must have at some point seen bits of the movie, but it's kind of got
You're
like quotes on.
The modern adaptations of the movies or the books?
Yes. Yeah, the new. Are they Disney? Are they Disney?
Walden books. No, I think it's Walden Books, strangely enough. I don't think it's Disney.
The movies?
Yeah.
I thought it was Disney. Clearly not. Yeah, production company's Walt Disney.
Oh, it is Walt Disney.
Walden Media with the Walt Disney Company and June Entertainment.
That's interesting. Disney has their fingers in everything I liked as a child. I don't know how to feel about that. Where was I just looking? Joy Division. How'd that pop up? Oh no, it's Joy Davidman. She was 45 years old when she died. That's the wife of the great C.S. Lewis, and she had 2 children. I wonder what she died from.
It doesn't say anything like that on the website. It just says died. Like later on for him, it's just one word, died, on the timeline.
She's very young. Either that or I'm just very old. One or the other. The idea of her dying at 45 years old really bothers me.
Why?
Because it was 45. It's not a very long life. How did she die?
No, but when did she die?
Oh, when did she die? 1960.
Oh yeah, okay. So
maybe she was just really upset about John F. Kennedy becoming president.
I can't give the whole excuse of, well, people are living longer nowadays, because it's not that long ago, really, when you think about it.
Well, they were living longer now. They do live longer nowadays. They might have given her like a treatment of methamphetamines. Here, just snort this up your nose. You'll feel better in the morning. Why she's probably still alive someplace. Oh, she had a heart condition.
Well, he had kidney condition, didn't he? According to the website, 2 years before he died, he was diagnosed with some kind of kidney issues.
The nightmare of the Battle of the Somme is so extensive. I mean, people who are coming back from that war were not being treated for the nightmare they lived through, and it took like a year to finish that battle. I mean, that place is devastated. There's still bombs embedded in the ground. Like, if you go to that area, you're not even allowed to walk across the battlefield because you might blow up. Right. If you look at an aerial photo of it, you could see the trenches still. I mean, the footprint of that battle is so intense. And he lived through it, and he came home with an injury, having lived, and other people that were around him died. And I would probably die of a kidney situation too if all I was offered is whiskey to drink for the rest of my life, to try to forget of the nightmare that I experienced at 22, 23 years old, something along those lines. Who is this person again? Her name is Lewis? No. Why is Lewis popping up?
Because we're searching C.S. Lewis.
Oh.
Do you want to go back to bed?
No, I know it was C.S. Lewis. I didn't think she changed
her name.
Her name is Davidson. And what did she die from? Wait, her condition. She has a condition. You know what you don't do when you're looking at Wikipedia? Read backwards. Because if you read backwards, you just get stuff like she died, she had a condition, radiation therapy, and belated honeymoon. She was taken to the kilns. She was in remission for cancer. So, yeah, sentence of death was passed on Joy, and the end is only a matter of time. So she has cancer.
I'm just looking at.
She had breast
another
cancer.
book that I've found on his website, the C.S.Lewis Bible. It's a Bible that's annotated with his quotes and writings and stuff.
Interesting.
You can buy for 30 quid.
So Joy Davidson died of breast cancer. That's horrible.
Yes, horrible.
And that was an incurable cancer in 1960. The survival rate of breast cancer is definitely significantly better nowadays. It's
Cancer's
awesome.
horrible anyway, no matter what you die of and how you die of it. It's horrible anyway, so.
Yeah, definitely not a good way. What did C.S. Lewis die of? You said kidney situation?
I think, 2 years before he dies, it says diagnosed with some kind of kidney illness. So I think that's probably what he died of, sadly.
Illness and death. He suffered from something called nephritis, which resulted in blood poisoning. I was a teacher at Cambridge. How does that make you feel?
How does what make me feel?
That he was a teacher at Cambridge.
I don't know. Am I supposed to feel something about that?
He suffered a heart attack and lapsed into a coma.
Oh, now we're just getting depressing.
Well, I mean, people die. He died.
I know, man, but
this happens, and it's part of his legacy. He was buried at Holy Trinity Church. Does that make you feel anything?
Depressed? Because we're talking about death all of a sudden.
Well, I mean,
I don't know. I think any death, author or family-wise, is always sad, no matter how they die and why they die, because you're losing some important contributor to the literary world, aren't you? So no matter who they are and how they die, it's going to be sad.
I mean,
and for his wife as well.
He died 3 years after her, maybe not even 3, maybe more or less, like a little over 2, and he was only 64 years old. And he only had like 9 years with her. I mean, these aren't sad things. I mean, these aren't like happy moments in the end of his life. He didn't like go into the ether with having experienced some great happiness or like the opportunity to say goodbye. He died suddenly while still working. Who knows what he would have ended up with at the end of his life. I mean, the idea of the C.S. Lewis Bible is fascinating because that was basically where his life's work was leading him. When was that published? Posthumously as well, or?
Let's have a look. It says C.S. Lewis Bible contains the trusted New Revised Standard Version text of the Bible with over 500 writings by C.S. Lewis placed alongside relevant passages throughout the text. His work appears in this beautiful Bible, which is printed in 2 colours throughout. It's had awards and praise, and it was published 11th of November 2010.
Wow.
With Collins, and it's 1,600 pages long in a hardback. So 30 quid. You can imagine that's why it's massive.
Yeah, 30 quid. So that's like $45 in American dollars.
I can tell you, but yeah, roughly, I think.
It's crazy to think that this guy will probably live forever based on his Chronicles of Narnia. I don't see it going away. Potentially, I don't know. I mean, you never even read them, and you are actually a countrywoman of his. So I would think that you would have they would have handed these to you in school and said, read them because they are written by the best author in English history or whatever. And they didn't.
No,
so.
I don't know. I think because schools push you to read books like Of Mice and Men and...
What? You read Of Mice and Men?
And Inspector Calls. Oh, yeah. I read Inspector Calls. I read Of Mice and Men. I know. We analysed it. We read it, analysed it, watched the movie in his English lessons. And yeah, the same for an Inspector Calls as well. We all read it in class together. We all did the different parts and did the same with that. But no, never read C.S. Lewis. Not in school, anyway. I probably at one point in my childhood owned a book or something of C.S. Lewis, but no, not to my knowledge.
That's fascinating. And then, I mean, if he does die off in terms of his literary works and the future doesn't read him, all of this Christian stuff that he devoted his energies to die off as well. I mean, it's kind of a shame. J.R.R. Tolkien obviously potentially will live on forever. His work is seminal in the fantasy genre. I mean,
I think C.S. Lewis's books will do the same.
To me, anyway, and hopefully my children as well. I mean, I'll pass them on. But you, I mean, they don't hold the same kind of feelings in your heart as they do for me, as an example. I mean, when you have children, are you going to pass them on to them and say, oh, you have to read these books? Or are they just like a passing thing? You saw a play when you were 20 some odd years old and read one of the books.
I don't know. I think it's a magical story for children. So I think if I have children, I will be passing on my book to them. But I don't know. I don't think it's because nobody forced C.S.Lewiss on me. It's not that they tried and I just wasn't interested. I just think it was one of those that just for some reason I never picked up. I've read a lot of other storybooks, a lot of other classics. I've read Alice in Wonderland and Dracula and a lot of other books that it'd be like classics that I suppose I would pass down to children and recommend to other people. But books to me,
English classics too, weren't they? Dracula,
yeah. Dracula's a really good book. But
was Lewis Carroll a English person? He was, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Because he has a statue in Central Park. I've stuck my finger in its nose.
Oh, that's classy.
Oh, I'm a classy dude. He is an English writer, yeah. So mathematician, logician, one of those words.
I've read some H.P. Lovecraft and all that. I've read. I don't know. I read little bits of things and then move on to something else. I can't say that there's anything I've read from my childhood that's been a wow book that I've kind of brought into my 20s. I just kind of pick books up and think, yeah, that's magical, and I enjoyed it, and then I move on. And as and when I have children, I will pick the books that I think they'll enjoy, and I'll pass those down. But I don't know. I don't know. Is the answer.
Well, I mean, I definitely know. I will make my children read these books. I will hold them down and force them to read it, and then give them tests afterward. And then if they fail the test, I'll make them read the book from page 1 all over again. And I'm sure this is going to instill a love of literature in them.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure that won't put them off at all.
It won't traumatize them at all. I'm positive. They won't have seizures when they see books or anything.
Do you know, it's interesting you say that, because the first thing I ask children when I go into schools is, how many of you here? I usually get them all to stand up, and then I say, okay, so sit down if you've never read a book in your life, and so many of them will sit down. And then sit down if you've only ever read a book because your parents or your teachers have forced you to, and then so many of them will sit down. You'd be surprised actually how many kids do sit down in classes like that. And I feel sometimes that it's kind of ruined because these books have been forced on them in school. And I think kids should just naturally like to read. I don't think books should be forced on them. They should be introduced and encouraged. But I don't know. If somebody said to me, if somebody said to me, you will read this book, I'd be a bit like, well.
Oh, it's happened. Of Mice and Men, I was forced to read it. Fahrenheit 451, I was forced to read it. And neither one of those books are my favorites. In fact,
I don't know.
Mice and Men.
I liked the Of Mice and Men story. I liked the whole point of it, the American dream and all that. But I can't say it's one of my favourites because I learned it in school. It's always going to be the book that I learned in school, that I did in school. It's never going to be something that I just picked up and stumbled on
and enjoyed and was allowed to fall in love with. Yeah, and there are tons of books like that.
I recommend other people read it.
The first book I experienced like that was Tales of the Fourth Grade Nothing by Judy Blume, and it wasn't forced on me to read. It was read to me by a third grade teacher who I'll never forget. And from there on, reading was one of my favorite things. And there's been a statistic that I heard where people who graduate high school, the large majority of them never pick up another book again.
I know, I've seen that. It's kind of a social media post that's been circulating. I think I've seen it. It's quite sad that so many children just never go back to reading. But it's because it's forced, and you've got to analyse everything, and you can't read a book in school just to enjoy the book. You've got to read it and tear it apart and pull bits out of it and symbolism and what does this mean. And what do you think the author is trying to say here? Who cares? Just read it and enjoy it, and then analyze it later. Don't The first experience of a book for a child should never be, let's read it and analyze it. It should be, read this in your own time and enjoy it, and then go back to it and say, okay, so let's analyze it. Let them enjoy it first. Don't just force it upon them. That's my view.
There was a thing when I was a kid. I think it was called the book club or something along those lines. If you read a book and wrote a little report on it, you get a stamp on this little Pizza Hut certificate, and you could take that Pizza Hut certificate and get a personal pan pizza for free from Pizza
Ooh,
Hut. Oh my God,
I would be so fat.
I was already, well, welcome to America. You would, exactly. It was like I just read endlessly anyway because I enjoyed it. So doing that was simple, write a few sentences about what the book was about, and I got a free pizza. So
Yeah.
I was constantly in the pizza as a
But it
child.
encourages you to read it on your own first, and then you can do the whole let's dig deep into what the book meant. But at least give them the chance to read it just to enjoy it first. I mean, there's nothing that ruins a book more than saying you've got to study it. It's just nobody wants to read a book to study it.
I mean, I guess my point is being I already read before that. Pizza Hut did not instill a love of reading in me associated with pizza. Before I even discovered Pizza Hut, I was reading the crap out of some books because I loved reading.
So
I
you
don't know
say
where that
associated with pizza now. Every time you finish reading a book, do you buy it? Do you order a pizza as a celebration?
I can't read without eating pizza now. No,
That would be an awesome habit.
that would be horrible, wouldn't it? I mean, I honestly, I don't think it helped, and I don't think that anybody who loves reading isn't doing it because they were rewarded with food. You know what I mean? It's not, they're rewarded with a book. They're rewarded with a great story, and that's where it comes from.
I think sometimes over here kids can get book tokens in school as well, so that they can
Mhm.
go and certain shops will accept them. And I think that's good. Like instead of rewarding them with sweets and rewarding them in other ways, reward them with a token to go to a bookshop. Because I think just the experience of going into a bookshop and picking up a Narnia book off the shelf and seeing the adventure look on the cover and the feel of it, I think it's just an experience in general, and it's kind of giving them the opportunity to say, right, which adventure do you want to go on next? Your reward for getting a good report card or whatever is an adventure, but to allow them to actually go to a store and to pick up a Narnia book and read about Aslan and all that, I think that's just the way to do it rather than forcing it on them in school. I don't know. I just don't think it works. And clearly it doesn't if that many people never go back to reading.
Yeah, it's really sad. I mean, that large number. When I was a kid, my mom worked at a library, so it wasn't like I don't know. When I was older, I didn't know how to use a bookstore. I didn't know what was happening in there. It's like all these books were grouped together in categories. But as a child, you'd walk through the aisles of the library and you would pick out randomly, or you'd find an author and you would enjoy them and read all their books. Um, so I mean, a token for a bookstore would probably just have gone to waste on me.
But I mean, did he just looking at the list of books, did he publish anything between losing his wife and dying himself? Because I mean, surely there's got to be something there. You lose your wife to
You're
something
talking
so
a couple
horrible
of
like
years
that.
though. You're talking
Well,
his wife died of breast cancer,
yeah,
was dying of breast cancer, right? I think the
but
diagnosis and her inevitable death was very short,
but
and
to
then
go
he
through
died
something
like
so sad like that, surely as a writer, that would it'd have to have some way to process that grief. And I just wondered if there was any book between her passing and him dying
I
that.
don't think he did anything like that. I
Did he
don't think
not?
he had an opportunity to
Mm,
process
that's sad.
the grief.
That's sad because I think that's they say writing's good for, it's like a self-help, isn't it? It's therapeutic, and I just wondered if, just out of interest, if there was anything that he produced that was a way for him to express his grief. Because surely to
He
lose your
died
wife to
on
something like that.
wow, he died on November 22nd, 1963. That's the day that
So not
John F.
long
Kennedy
then.
was assassinated. That was the exact
Oh
day that
really?
John F. Kennedy was assassinated. He died. Yeah, that's very strange.
Wow.
But where was I just looking at? So remember that November 22nd, 1963, and then we go back
Mm-hmm.
and she died in 1960. So it was definitely over 2 years.
Probably not then in
That
2
was,
years. Especially if he's ill as well.
Yeah, he was not well. I mean, he had obviously issues. And she died in July 1960. So 2 years and 2 months. No, wait. Yeah, right? Do the math on that.
Mm.
Nope, that's 3 years. 3 years and 2 months. 4 months. Wow, I can't do math. See, I guess I read a lot and didn't learn any math. I don't even know how to add. So that's not good.
Well, I'm a writer for a reason. I can't count to save my life.
So yeah, it was a little over 3 years and he died. Did he write anything from 1960 July on? Let's find out that answer. The Kilns. Man, that's like a scary name for a house. The Kilns. It reminds me of the
Yeah, it's
Kilns, right?
kind of creepy, that, isn't it?
Dude, where is your Wikipedia page? This is the bad thing about having these wonderful speculative conversations is I end up having 1,000 tabs open on my computer.
I should just go onto the timeline on his website and see, because I'm sure it'd say on there. Let's have a look. Scrolling.
I'm on Wikipedia.
Here we go.
1942.
So, his wife dies in 1960. He's diagnosed in 1961 with kidney inflammation. And between his wife dying in 1960, he publishes Studies in Words, A Grief Observed, under the pseudonym N.W.
Oh, there you go.
Clark. Mm-hmm.
That's your answer right there, right?
Criticism. Yeah, and then he dies in 1963.
So grief observed. I mean, that's basically the answer to your, didn't he have an opportunity to process that?
Mm.
And that's reflections on the experience of bereavement following the death of his wife, Joy Davidman. The book was published in 1961 under his pseudonym N.W. Clark. He did not want to be identified with the book for some reason. Probably
it was under a pseudonym.
He illustrates the everyday trials of life without joy and explores fundamental questions of faith. The Odyssey? The Odyssey? What the hell is the Odyssey? Theodicy is the most common form, is an attempt to answer the question of why a god permits the manifestation of evil. Some theodicies also address the evidential problem of evil by attempting to make the existence of an all-knowing, all-powerful, and all-good or omnibenevolent. Okay. Too many big words, Wikipedia. Thanks a lot for making me look stupid in front of my friend in England. Whatever.
I won't be able to do much better, so I won't worry.
So basically, to sum up C.S. Lewis, I've read the Chronicles of Narnia. I absolutely love the Chronicles of Narnia. The books do not get any better than the Chronicles of Narnia for me. I look back on these very fondly, and I cannot wait to pass them down to my children. C.S. Lewis had a sad life, though, unfortunately. World War I, not a very good experience. The Battle of the Somme is a horrible nightmare that probably affected him his entire life, and I don't even see it showing up in the Chronicles of Narnia. It's very odd that he lived through that and it didn't show up. J.R.R. Tolkien lived through that same experience, and we have these 4 books that are basically based on his experience there, and you could tell the nightmarish type of situation that he had to undergo.
Yeah, I don't think war comes to it. Well, I suppose in a small way, I guess it kind of does. Good versus evil, the Queen versus Aslan, you could say. But not significantly, not so that you'd notice it. You'd have to, again, study it and pull it apart to understand the relevance of war in the stories. But I don't know, just for what they are, I just think they're just magical stories for children, aren't they?
Yeah. And there's more to it, like you said, if you pull it apart, if you look deeper. But I think he did such a marvelous job of just writing these, great imaginative stories where it doesn't hit you in the face. I mean, it's not nightmarish. I mean, you have witches and whatnot, but you also have magical creatures kind of holding your hand all the way through. Satyrs and whatever have you, talking animals.
Yeah.
The Narnian universe. Yeah, these are great. I love C.S. Lewis. I have never read any of his Christian apology stuff. That science fiction trilogy that you read does not appeal to me in any sense whatsoever.
Well, I must admit, I have no appeal to go back and reread it either,
or even pick
to
up
finish
the
No, I think just
the
because it was on
official.
ebook at the time, and I think I just got my Kindle, and I thought, oh well, why not give it a shot? And I did enjoy it; it was worth reading, but I wouldn't be enthused to read the rest of the series, and I certainly wouldn't go back and reread it. But the Narnia books, I'm interested in reading more of them. It's just finding the time to do it.
I mean, as a person who obviously grew up and lived in England their entire life, did you know of C.S. Lewis prior to reading before reading that first book, that science fiction book?
Yeah, just never read anything.
What was your opinion of him up till actually reading one of his stories?
I don't really think I had an opinion of him, to be honest. I think it was just like most of the other authors out there that I know of that I've never read. I can't say that I had any particular opinion.
Was there any discussion about him that you understood or remember hearing when you were growing up?
No, not really, if I'm being honest. No, I mean, I always knew of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and those chronicles, and they were kind of floating around in when we were all talking about favourite books and stuff. They always got mentioned, and I always saw them on the shelves in the bookshops, but there was never any discussion really that stuck with me. Nothing
Or
to push me to
any
buy
interest
them.
to pick it up and read it?
No, not really. But with me, I read that much and I read that often that it's probably just because other things have grabbed my attention first, or that it's been in my list of many things to read or to watch and I've just never got around to it. I think the only reason I actually read it is because I went to the play and they were selling the books there and I knew I didn't own any of his books. And it was a lovely edition and I knew that I really needed to read something of his eventually. And my friend obviously was pushing me to read sorry, my cat's causing chaos, to read the book.
Oh, that was your cat?
Yeah.
I thought that was you.
No, it was my cat causing chaos. So to pick them up and read them, the only reason I did that is because they were on sale there and it was a nice edition, so I just kind of treated myself at the play. But I probably wouldn't have picked up a paperback book of his unless I'd gone to that play, so you could say that's the only reason why I bothered.
Huh. Well, I'm happy that you did, because I didn't even know they made these into plays. Obviously, the TV series and the movies. I don't know. What else do we need to mention about C.S. Lewis that we haven't already talked about? Sad life, wrote a lot of books, 7 of which I really enjoyed. The rest of them I probably will never read.
I don't know. I think we've covered pretty much everything.
Speculated enough on C.S. Lewis today?
I think so.
Well, as always, I really thoroughly enjoyed discussing this author with you, and I look forward to next time as well.
Yeah, I always enjoyed it. It was a pleasure, as always. Okay, thank you for having me, and goodbye.